How's it going, everyone? Again, my name is Chad Butler, and today for my historical sports topic, we're going to talk a little bit. I'm unfortunately a little biased towards baseball, so that's a subject we're going to be talking about, in more particular, the steroid era. And when it comes to the steroid era, there's two parts of the sports aspect and this media aspect that we're talking about, the world that we're going to look at. For sports and media in general, what sports is, this sort of entertainment factor, that's the idea we're gonna tackle, and the other one is how the media can thrive off of this steroid era and exactly what it brings to the table. So first off, what is the steroid era? The steroid era in baseball relates to the time between the late 1980s and the mid to late 2000s, where we saw an increase. We don't know the exact number. The MLB had never released exactly how many numbers or how many players were charged with testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs. But we get to the point where we see players even ratting out other players, not necessarily saying who in particular, but how many are. Jose Canseco actually wrote a book called Juiced, which is a famous book talking about exactly, and he actually called out a couple players in particular. But he said somewhere between 85 to 90% of baseball players around the league were taking steroids when he was during his time in the MLB. And David Wells, who's a famous pitcher, he gets a little bit lower. He says about 40% of players were taking performance-enhancing drugs. But it was no secret that players were definitely taking these drugs. And when it came down to it, it was very entertaining. And that's that first topic like I was talking to you about, this sort of entertainment factor that sports is supposed to be to people. And in short, people want to see home runs, and they want to see the big guys do it. They want to see the people that no ordinary man can do, which is hit the home run off major league pitching. And it was no shocker to these people that maybe something was going on, because when you started getting to the late 80s, when this sort of epidemic, or whatever you want to call it, this steroid era, if you want to call it an epidemic, you can. People were looking like professional middle linebackers who were standing in the batter's box, and it was insane. It was no secret that something was going on. And that takes us to our next part of it, this sort of morality and how it is for the media. The media is going to thrive off these two opinions. There's going to be the people who look at sports and look at baseball in particular and think that there should not be these players who are on these performance-enhancing drugs because it's unfair. But then you have other people in the baseball world in particular who say that this sort of steroid thing is not an issue at all because according to them, the game has always sort of had its flaws. And the main argument in particular that we see from those that don't really have an issue with the steroids is they talk back to the color barrier in the MLB. The MLB color barrier didn't get broke until 1947 when Jackie Robinson entered Major League Baseball and joined the Brooklyn Dodgers. But up until then, professional Major League Baseball teams were filled with very mediocre players, and it showed in their performance. And it caused this Negro leagues to get started, and we saw fantastic players. There were some people that said that some of the best players in the history of the game played for these Negro leagues, like Satchel Paige. And when you have these two ideas and these two arguments against each other, and you have this idea of is it right or is it wrong, that's where the media plays into the sports world. It's if they can convey and persuade a certain individual who's torn on the topic, if they can properly convey this side of the argument against this side of the argument, they're going to draw the viewers in, and that's the important part of the media and how they do it. The steroid era is making its toll today because there's players now who are accused of using these performance-enhancing drugs that are up for Hall of Fame voting, and it tears the Hall of Fame voters apart and the baseball world apart because you have players like Barry Bonds, who's the home run leader. You have players like Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, who are all these fantastic players, and Roger Clemens. Should they get into the Hall of Fame or not? And me personally, I'm on the side of the fence where I don't think they should, but then again, there's others that say they won't. And that's what the media is able to do, and get both sides of the argument and say it's up for debate. They're playing the devil's advocate, and I think that's what the media has pretty much its role in when it comes to sports. Thank you very much.